Joe, I've been thinking a lot about golf recently, as I always do. And, you know, aside from the stock shots we always go and practice, right, there's a lot of shots that appear on the golf course that you never practice, but that are really vital to keeping a round going and keeping a score going. Does that seem fair?
I would say that's fair. There's some essential skills you need to master to be good at golf.
Should we go and find some out on the course today and help some people out?
Let's do it. Well, there comes points in rounds, isn't there? And this is a good example here. We're on the 17th hole at Kedleston Park, got a good round going, and I'm looking down the fairway and there's a lot of trouble either side.
Left and right, it's very tree lined, isn't it?
It is very tree lined, but it could be a really good opportunity because it's a shortish par 5 if we can find the fairway. So aside from your normal stock drive that you might hit and practice all the time, I think it's really important to have a fairway finding shot, if you like, and I'm going to demonstrate mine to you. There are other ways which we might get into in a second, but I'm just going to demonstrate what I do when I really need to hit a fairway.
Okay, go on.
A couple of little things I change at setup. Firstly, I peg the ball down just a little bit.
Why'd you do?
Ball pegged up a lot, it helps me sweep up on the ball and maybe hit from the inside a bit and get a nice powerful draw. That can increase my dispersion a little bit, so when it's pegged down, my attack angle comes down a little bit and I start to sort of squeeze a little fade out, and then I know the ball is going to turn from left to right. So that gives me the confidence to aim just a little bit left, knowing the ball is going to squeeze out a little bit. And then from there, all I do is choke down on the club about half an inch. I stand a tiny bit closer to the ball because of that. So because I'm closer to the ball, I've got a better chance of centering the contact. I've then narrowed my stance a tiny bit, so I've got a slightly smaller radius of swing from the choking down and a slightly tighter swing radius from having a slightly narrower stance. So all that's kind of doing is inhibiting my speed a little bit, admittedly, so I'm taking a little bit off it, but exactly, that's okay for this shot. The priority here is finding the fairway.
And you're more assured of what shot shape you're going to get,
100%.
So you can know where to aim and where to find the fairway.
Absolutely, and just pegging it down really helps me know that this ball is going to squeeze from left to right, so it gives me the confidence to aim up the left. So I'll choke down again, like I said.
Show us the way then, son.
Half an inch. I'm aiming just inside that tree there, slightly narrower stance than normal, and I'm just going to make my smooth little golf swing. No, it's going to bleed off that tree nicely.
Yeah,
just inside it perfectly. That's a good example. So really tight, so it's just past that tree, and now I'm in really good shape to make a birdie.
Right, and Joe, found in your spiritual home, the trees.
Bit harsh, but yes, probably accurate.
I know we just talked about fairway finders, obviously sometimes you miss that, and this is a shot, the punch out from the trees, that you just never, well, I don't anyway, practice, do you? You don't go to the range and start punching 5 irons off your back foot or whatever.
I see a lot of complacency on this shot, and I play a lot of pro-ams and play with a lot of guys who sort of walk into this scenario and just see it as a nominal shunt forward.
Correct.
But it's actually far more complicated than a shot from the middle of the fairway where you're thinking about your yardage and the wind. There's actually a lot more going on here to think about, don't you think?
So let's do strategy first then, and we'll come on to execution in a minute and how to practice it. So let's talk about this situation we found ourselves in.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty standard, so I've cut it too much off this tee. I'm in the right trees, but it's, like I said, a little bit more complex. We've got, the green is actually over there behind this set of trees.
Yeah.
But I've got the fairway here to the left, and I've got a couple of options. To the right of this big oak tree there, I've probably got a 5 or 6 yard gap.
Fancy that, do you?
It's doable in the right situation, but is it a percentage play? Probably not. Even if I hit that gap from a width point of view, there's some overhanging limbs further up that I've got to keep it under, and I'm only really gaining around 20 to 30 yards. So I think in this scenario, it'd be more prudent to go through this larger gap to the left. We've still got some issues there though to think about. And I always start with a lie. Whenever you get to a shot, you've got to assess what is possible from the lie. And I've got a reasonably clean lie here, so I can think of a lot to do. We've got some quite hard pan stuff, which you tend to find in these trees, which we'll talk about in the execution in a minute. But this is a very different shot to that, for example.
So you've got to work out where you are first.
So you've got to work out where you are and work out what's possible. We're going to base it on a reasonably clean lie here. So the next thing you need to think about is how much you've got to carry and how much run out you've got the other side, and that will determine the club that you're going to pick. So you've told me before that you quite often just walk in and you take your least lofted iron, your 5 iron.
It's always 5 iron. It's just I go, yeah, 5 iron, whatever.
But when that happens, if this rough is quite thick, which it is here, it's quite grabby, you've got to get that 5 iron carrying that rough. Otherwise, you're going to stop in the rough here, not have a shot to that green because these trees will impinge you. But if you carry that rough, it's going to hit that fairway and keep running and running and running and possibly run into the trees the other side. So I need to know here, I've got these over that I've got to keep it under, because if it pops up too high and I pull out a 9 iron or an 8 iron, pops up too high, clips that, it's going to land there and I'm still in the same problem.
Yeah.
So I've got to pick the right club that's going to give me enough carry to get past this rough, but stay under those trees. And from experience, I feel that's a 6 iron for me.
Yeah.
So you've got to weigh up where you want to be playing your next shot from. There's a lot to think about. Like I said, it's far more complex than just a shot from the middle of the fairway, but people treat it like just a nothing shot and just walk up and shunt it and can still be in trouble. So it's really key to give it the attention it deserves, pick the right club and pick your right strategy.
Sorry, Joe, it turned out impinged was a word.
I knew it was.
So I've learnt a word, now teach us how to play the shot.
Good idea, Dad. Good segue. So first things first, from a technical point of view, this shot's all about control and controlling the flight. So the first thing I always like to do is choke down on the club, and it will always depend on the type of shot we're trying to play. All of these punch outs are different and they should be treated differently.
Okay.
They should be treated individually. If I had a little bit further to go, I might need to choke up a little bit more than I normally would for this shot, because I need a bit more carry. So experience and practice is going to teach you that. Secondly, visualization is a big key here. I need to get behind this, I need to look and I need to see the ball fly. I need to play a little picture in my mind of how this ball is going to take off, and then with my eyes, get that good message through my eyes to my brain. That should send the signals which put me in a good setup position.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I like that.
So it should be an athletic thing. So once you've got that visualization of where you need to go, we've choked down on the club. The ball's going to be a little bit back because I need to keep it down here.
How far back do you have it? It looks like front, back heel.
Again, it's all shot dependent. People want kind of absolutes for these shots.
Yes, please. No?
But
Okay.
unfortunately, golf isn't an absolute kind of thing. If I need to carry it a little bit further, the ball's going to be slightly forward than this shot where I need to keep it very, very low. So how far forward and backwards in the stance it is depends on what
How far
shot,
you need to carry it.
how far I need to carry it,
How much
and
room you have up here.
how much room
Okay.
I have beneath those trees. So for this particular shot, and that's why we're saying you need to practice these shots. It will seem odd that say you're going to go to the practice ground and hit bumps and punches and practice your punch out game, but it is key and it will save you shots. So if you start to understand your ball position relative to certain flights, it's going to really help you in this situation. And that's what I mean about your eyes will start to send the right messages to your brain, and that setup will become more automatic.
Right, I've learnt a bit. Show us how it's done. I'm going to grab a club. Oh, well executed, sir. And that is going to go, that's good. Deep enough in the fairway. Just for the record, we hit a ball early, you just hit that ball. So that's twice you've done the exact same shot.
You're welcome.
It's carried far enough to go under those branches, but far enough so you can go and hit the green. I'm going to have a go now because you've taught me a lot today.
So you're choking down.
I've pulled the 6 iron.
You're seeing the shot.
I've sent messages to my brain.
And you sent the right messages because that's just made the fairway. You're in good shape. And
Not
now you're
my
back in-
finest, but again, I've got to go practice that. So, hey, I've got the fundamentals now. Go and practice it. It's a really useful shot to have. Right, next up, Joe, really important shot. It's the chip and run, the bump and run. Now, I think we get it a lot on the golf course. I think a lot of people do practice this, but it's an essential shot. It's going to save you a lot of shots if you get up and down. How do we perfect it? How do we practice it? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dan. That's very kind. There are a couple of ways of doing it, and I've got a simple way, I think. Someone like a Shane Lowry might disagree with this. So Shane Lowry, for example, he's a guy that likes to play all of these shots around the green with his 58-degree wedge, and he makes a lot of technical changes, putting the ball back, hands forward, changing things around to produce different flights and different outcomes. My personal opinion on it, and a lot of other pros, we've got a bag full of clubs here. We've got potentially 10, 11, even 12 clubs we could play bump and runs with, including 3-wood, for example. So what I like to do, I have a formula in my brain. I like to, number one, my key is to get the ball on the green as quickly as possible and get it rolling as quickly as possible. So to do that, you need to know what club's going to produce the right amount of carry to get it just on the green and then produce the right amount of roll.
Okay.
So I kind of work on a formula basis. I like to have a 50-50 club, which I know in normal conditions, flat conditions on around a 10 stimp green will provide me with 50% of carry and 50% of roll. For me, that's my pitching wedge.
Okay.
Then I can work in the variables around that. If the green's firmer, those percentages might change a little bit.
So from there, though, is your 9 iron, a 60-40.
Correct.
Sorry, 40-60, and so on.
Basically,
Pretty
yeah.
much.
So it's actually the other way. So 9 irons
It is,
less
yes.
loft, So it would be 40% carry and 60% roll. Keep up, Dan.
Thank you, Professor Hawking.
You're very welcome. So from there, like I say, we factor in the variables, whether the greens are firm, whether the greens are soft, whether we're going uphill, whether we're going downhill. But as I said, number one key, get the ball on the green as quickly as possible and get it rolling.
And it's worth then for people watching, going and practicing and figuring out what your 50-50 club is or what your 40-60 club is.
I'd say
it's going to be different to yours,
absolutely,
isn't it? Yeah.
Could well be, but I'd say that's the key, is practicing that, because the technique, which we'll talk about now, isn't actually that complicated. No. It's a fairly, I like to think of it as just an extended putt. So what we're talking about here, I have a ball that's fairly centred, maybe even just slightly forward in my stance.
Okay.
I try and keep the shaft pitched up a little bit higher, sort of more in the lie angle of a putter, and then it's literally just a rock of the shoulders, and I'm trying to get this club just coming in dead level with the ground and brushing the turf. I don't want any sort of pinchy strikes when I'm taking divots.
Joe, show us this. Why have you picked 8 iron? I'm going to have a go as well, actually. Talk us through it.
8 iron wise, so I'm looking here and I'm thinking we've probably got about 20 to 25% of carry here, and then maybe 75, 80% of roll.
Okay.
Going up quite a steep slope, but we've played on these greens today and they're relatively quick. So it's an experience thing, and that's where the practice has to come in.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily, as I said, it's not necessarily you need to be grooving a lot of technical practice with the bump and run, because it's quite a simple technique. It's more understanding those relationships between what club you pick and what roll and carry percentage it will take. So
very good.
For me here, based on my experience, I fancy 8 iron is the right club, and I'm not looking at necessarily an exact blade of grass or something. I'm just looking at an area which is around 2 to 3 feet on the green. Try and land it in that area and get it rolling the rest of the way. And like I said, nice neutral stance. Look at my landing area, rock the shoulders, get it just going 2 or 3 feet on the green.
Yeah, and that's just going to cuddle up pin high.
Pushed it a little bit, but it's dead pin high, so I've probably got, what, 4 or 5 feet there for par.
Yeah.
8 out of 10, but it's a very safe, fail-safe shot.
Interesting, and this is just something, again, get yourself to the chipping green and practice, because it's a shot I don't practice with an 8 iron or whatever club you might have used. So once you've got that formula you've just said, go and practice it, because you can work out the relationship with the ball in the face, how quick it comes off. Okay, so a little bit central, bit of shaft vertical.
Just brush the grass. Lovely. 3 or 4 feet on.
Steady now.
You've absolutely
I've
shown
nailed
me
that.
there.
Steady now. I'm inside the pro. I'm inside the pro, below the hole as well, mate.
Well, I mean, it's a good shot. It just shows what an excellent teacher I am.
What a great teacher he is. So take all of that there, go practice it, go work out that ratio, the relationship with the ball, with some of these different irons around here, and you'll be up and down more often than not. Next then, Joe, on the green, putting. And now I'm going to give us something pretty basic here, but it's something that you need to master, you need to get right, practice it alongside everything else. It's just holding out from really short range. How do we do it? I put the ball in the hole, obviously. I meant more, how do we practice it?
The process of getting better at it, I assume, is what you're asking
that's
here.
That's what I'm getting at.
So yeah, I mean, it's something, again, I see it a lot. Playing in pro-ams, playing with amateur partners, miss a lot from this range. And I think there's a couple of things I'd like to talk about. Number one, there's just some fundamental technical issues, and one of those technical issues I think is centering strike.
Okay.
I see so many people hitting off the heel toe, low or high on the face, and what happens when that takes place is the ball doesn't come off at the pace it's supposed to, and if you've got a breaking putt, it can veer offline because it's not going to have enough momentum to stay online because you don't have the same energy from strike. Also on sort of less high MOI putters, heel and toe strikes can kind of open and close the face a little bit, so it's really important to get centered contact, and one of the best drills for that is the Tiger Woods drill you might have seen a few times over the years. So he does it as part of his warm-up all the time when he's playing, just getting a couple of tee pegs. Probably best to start with a little bit of margin for error.
You've given yourself no margin for error there, but you are the pro.
I've been a bit tight on myself here, and it's just simply find a nice straight putt and start stroking putts and trying to miss those tees, so we're centering contact, and that's just really good habit. It's part of, whether it's part of practice or warm up or both, just learning to center that contact is absolutely critical, and I would heartily recommend a good 5 or 10 minutes a day on that.
And that's, you like to talk about the computer up here.
Yeah.
And I think seeing the ball go in the hole a lot, whether that's before a round or practicing, it's good vibes.
Good subliminal
messages,
messaging. Gives confidence and gives everything you need.
And that
to
works
say.
on longer putts as well, just striking the putt
100%,
out of the middle.
yeah.
So it helps
one,
your hole in. Sorry, go on, mate.
So yeah, another one on that, if you do want to do it from further away. Another one of my drills, I do a bit with a putting mirror.
Yes.
Another one I like to set up, maybe double this, maybe 6 feet. Find a straight uphill putt, relatively flat putt with no break. And I like to practice hitting 3 balls, one that's going to just drop in the front edge at no pace, the next putt that's going to go in at sort of a more mid-level pace, and make sure the next one hits off the back of the cup, and then work up and down that scale. Then you're really fine-tuning your feel, and when you've got the option of hitting it in at pace or dropping it in, you can pick the break you want to play a little bit more easily if it's a breaking putt. So you're really, again, sending good messages and fine-tuning your touch and feel. And while we're talking about breaking putts, my next tip for practice on these is something I'm going to get you involved in. I'm going to make you do it. So another reason I see a lot of amateurs missing short putts is they just assume every putt's straight. You get to close and you think, well, if I hit it firm enough, it's straight enough.
Yeah.
That's just not the case. It's a good example here. We're on probably, for the aim pointers amongst us, probably a 2% slope here from our left to right down here. So a really good way of practicing these short putts is if you get a standard length putter, generally sort of 33 to 36 inches, around the 3 foot mark. So you can grab a few tee pegs and set up a little clock face. Put the putt head in the hole, drop a tee down at the end of it, you've got 3 feet. Drop another tee.
I see where you're going.
Kind of, you can do 4, you can do quarters, and just keep dropping those round in a different area. I'm going to set you up 3
Set me up
here,
3, yeah.
and I'm going to go this way. So what you'll do here is you're going to get these 3 foot putts, but they're all going to be different breaks. This one's going to have a touch of right to left in it.
Yeah, which is...
From this side, we're going to have a touch of left to right. We've got a downhiller.
Just changing the pace a little bit from the one we would have had down
Exactly.
there.
And what you'll do is you hit some putts away
keep
for me here.
talking
I'll get the
away,
balls out for you. But what you'll do as you're sort of going through this drill, lovely putt, now give me a downhiller, you'll start to eventually over time, you'll figure out some tendencies and you'll notice maybe you're better on right to left or left to right putts.
Because we were doing this before we filmed this now, and I was just pulling these, wasn't I? The ones I just did there along the break.
You've been able to correct that a little bit as we're going along. So you'll start to notice some tendencies. You'll identify some weaknesses, and if you're really careful, someone like a Matt Fitzpatrick would document some of these things and write down this practice and go, okay, I've missed X amount right or left of the hole, and you can begin to work on those tendencies. So getting a bit more clinical and statistical with practice from this range, if you can get sharp from here and get your percentages up in the 90s from this range, it is huge for most club golfers. So I think those are really good ways of making it happen.
Love them, Joe. 2 really good drills there to work on what is a fundamental part of the game you need to get right to get your scores lower. Right, lastly, Joe, we're in a bunker. And what I want to talk about here is just a fail-safe, get out of the bunker option. A lot of people are scared of bunkers. We're on the 17th here. You don't want to ruin a round by knifing one through. So we're going to talk here about just a fail-safe thought and technique. Not necessarily just to get up and down all the time and nip one in there. It's just to even get up and 2-putt and not mess it up. So give us some nice thoughts to have when we're on the course.
I think this is a really good example. You've picked a good shot here as well, because we're short-sided. We've hit it in the left bunker, the pin's on the left, the green's all running away. So with the best will in the world, even if you're one of the better bunker players in golf, this is a really tricky one to get up and down. So primarily, target number 1 is be out of this trap and have a putt of some description for par.
Target number 1, take the target out of it.
Yeah, I would agree with that
entirely if we can.
I would agree with that, yeah, very much so. So we're not even focusing on the pin here. All our focus is getting the correct strike on this ball so it pops out the bunker, and we're taking no more than 3 to get. We always talk about getting up and down, but sometimes 3 shots from particular situations is good, and this is it. And for me, from a technique point of view, a fail-safe way of doing that, I like to envisage, and I think I'll draw it now for illustration purposes, a little circle around the ball. So it's about 1.5 inches probably either side of the ball. So it ends up looking a bit like a fried egg, and that ball's sat on a little island in the middle of that circle. And again, you're talking about taking the target out of your sort of consciousness. I want to take the ball out of consciousness here.
Okay.
All I am focusing on here is slapping this little island of sand that I've created, and I want to land this sand by the hole.
Okay.
So many people I see get a bit tentative in this scenario, and that you see where that sand landed about here.
Yeah.
We don't get enough speed. Speed is underrated in bunkers. You need it to get out. So we're actually going to hit this shot quite hard, but to counteract that, and I've heard it a million times, the club face needs to be a little bit open. If we're too square, you get too much club face on the ball, and that's when you send it rocketing over there. So we're going to open up the club face. That activates the trailing edge, so the club will go in at the back of this island, and it will have the pace and the bounce to come back out, and the ball should travel out. Not focusing on ball, not focusing on target, just going to take my normal wide stance, open up that club face, and all I want to do, like I said, is slap that sand and throw it up to the pin. It's come out great. It's run on a little bit far. So what, we've kind of 8 foot from there. That's a really good result. I'd have taken 25 feet if I'm totally honest.
That's it. You've hit a really good bunker shot there. It's still an 8 foot pass. You try and get too cute with that, trying to make up and down, you're back in here, aren't you?
And you're facing the same thing again. So we're just going to get it out and take it from there.
So
what are you doing here, Dan?
I'm here to experiment.
Oh, lovely.
So we've had it. That's a nice fail-safe one when you've got a good lie.
Yes.
Right? Can I just give you a bit of one of them?
Wow.
Just a bit of a fried egg.
Yeah, that's
a nasty one,
deeply
that,
unpleasant, actually.
So I need another fail-safe option here. I need something I can fall back on when I'm out on the course and I'm panicking.
Perfect. So number one here, this ball is now sat below the surface level of the sand. So we know we need to have the club under the ball to propel the ball up. So many people see this and think it's going to come out low and horrible and try and help it up in the air. Worst thing you can possibly do. You're bringing the equator into play there and you are going to be sending a rocket through into those trees there. Contrary to the first shot here, you still need the pace, but I'm not too worried about throwing the sand all the way here. My first thought whenever I'm plugged is to drill the club into the sand as hard and as steep as I can, and I try and leave it there. So I stick it in, so it will look a little something like that.
Yeah.
The sand does come out and it propels it with a lot of pace, but it just makes sure that I'm keeping that club traveling downwards, downwards, downwards under the ball, and you actually need to hit down to make it go up, not up to make it go up. So same again, fairly wide stance. Generally speaking, I open the club up a little bit still. Some people recommend playing it with a square face.
I was going to say, you want to try and bring that leading edge in a little bit.
Yeah, I think maybe if we're talking maybe the sort of mid to high handicap end of the spectrum,
yeah.
I think that would be useful. You probably would just square it up a little bit to ensure the leading edge will help you dig under the ball. If you've got a bit more speed and you're a little bit more accomplished, you can still open the face up a little bit. So depending on your level of ability, that's probably something to think about. But we're just talking fail-safe here. So I'm going to square it up, and I just want to make sure this gets out. So I'm square blade. I'm looking at that little line behind the ball, and I'm just going to dig, stick it in there.
Well,
come out lovely.
Oh,
nearly out again. But you can see how much deeper that divot is. I've just stuck it in, and the club barely moved past. So just concentrate on that. Drill the club under the ball. And I think that's a pretty fail-safe way that the ball will get out every time.
Brilliant, great work, Joe. There's 2 fail-safe swing thoughts and feelings to have there. When you get a bit nervy toward the end of your round, you get in a bunker you don't like the look of, get up. If you hole one of those putts, great. 2 putt in there's fine as well. So Joe, thank you very much. Great work today.
I'll take both of them.
You take both of them. Good work today. Go practice these shots. Go work on this stuff. Alongside your normal game, if you get these shots we spoke about today right, your score's going to come down, aren't they, Joe?
100%, yeah, 100%. These basics will stand you in very good stead.
Well, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.